Welcome to Oerlikon Friction Systems. Today we are going to cover a number of health, safety, and environmental subjects to ensure your safety and the safety of others. You have been provided with an orientation checklist. Throughout this training, we will be testing your knowledge on the subject matters. At the bottom of the checklist is an area to circle the correct answers. At the end of the training, we will need you to initial the various subjects we have covered to indicate that you have received the training. You are an important part of our business, and Oerlikon wants to ensure your safety while you are here. Please observe at all times the 5 golden rules. Number 1, no person is allowed to work for Oerlikon or visit an Oerlikon site without having received adequate safety instruction and training. Number 2, no person is allowed to override or interfere with a safety provision nor give orders to override or interfere with them. Number 3, personal protective equipment or PPE rules applicable to a given task must be adhered to at all times. Number 4, no person is allowed to work under the influence of alcohol or drugs. And lastly, number 5, all injuries and incidents must be reported. The health and safety of our employees and the protection of our environment are top priorities at Oerlikon. The overall ambition of the health, safety, and environmental sustainability policy is zero harm to people. This includes employees, contractors, visitors, and the community around us. We believe that all injuries, occupational illnesses, and diseases can be avoided. We also strive to minimize the environmental impact of our operations and products along the value chain, and to become caretakers of the global ecosystem and champions to sustainability. It is imperative that all individuals on our site understand and follow this policy and make a personal commitment to improve the system in place. Reducing our impact on the environment and ensuring a safe and healthy workplace is everyone's responsibility, and it is critical to our success. All employees are responsible for understanding and adhering to this policy. This facility is committed to your health and safety, protection of the environment, and supplying quality parts to our customers. We are internationally certified for not only our quality systems, but ISO 14001 certified for environmental management systems and ISO 45001 health and safety management systems. These certifications are a sign of our commitment to your health and safety and the community in which our business is located, and you are a critical part of our management systems. The following information is for your safety. It covers the essential information you need to work safely. Additional training will be required and provided by our HSE department, your supervisor, assistant supervisor, and/or team lead. We will also review some of the standard operating procedures that control health, safety, and environmental matters. For your safety and the safety of others, you may not work under the influence of drugs or alcohol. This is a drug-free facility, and violations of this policy may be grounds for termination. We reserve the right to conduct drug testing randomly, after an incident, or with reasonable suspicion. In the event of an emergency, locate the emergency exit nearest your workstation. Emergency exits are located throughout the facility and are clearly marked. Maps are located near exits that indicate where you are to go if the building is evacuated or a shelter-in-place emergency is announced. Your supervisor will review with you in more detail where to go in case of an evacuation. For a fire evacuation, sirens will go off and you will be advised to leave the building. Our assembly areas are marked on the grassy areas near the river bikeways. You are to assemble with your department in these areas on the side of the building. Exits and tornado safe zones are located on the second floor maps. These are also located on first floor maps. These maps are posted throughout the facility. Unfortunately, in today's society, active shooter events are a tragedy that have been occurring more and more frequently, and it is critical to know how to respond if an individual is actively engaging or attempting to kill people. The first thing you should try and do is run. Evacuate the building if you can do so safely. Once in a safe location, you can then call the police. If escape is not possible, find a place to hide where the shooter is less likely to find you. Your hiding place should be out of the shooter's view and make it difficult for the shooter to gain access to where you're hiding. Lock any doors and block the access with any heavy furniture that might be available. It is important to remain quiet and to silence your phone. As a last resort, you should take action or attack the active shooter. This should be done only if your life is in imminent danger. Use improvised weapons to incapacitate the shooter. Use heavy objects such as a fire extinguisher, chair, or any throwable objects that might be around. Be sure to commit to your actions. Do not hesitate and act as aggressively as possible. In the event that you are injured, contact your supervisor or first responder. They will evaluate the injury and determine if additional treatment is needed. All incidents of injury, near miss, and property damage or environmental release are required to be reported on Form SH1. Reporting incidents allows us to assess the incident and make improvements to prevent reoccurrence. It is important to understand our incident reporting procedures. For more information on incident reporting, please see SOP 80. You have the right to report work-related injuries and illnesses. Employers are prohibited from discharging or in any manner discriminating against employees for reporting work-related injuries or illnesses. We will not discharge an employee or in any manner discriminate against an employee for reporting a work-related injury or illness. Additionally, it is important to remember that you have the ability to remove yourself from any work situation that presents a serious danger to your life or health. First aid kits are located throughout the facility. The list of first responders is posted on the doors of the kits. We also have AEDs, or automatic electronic defibrillators, located next to most of the first aid kits. Hard-plumbed eyewash stations are located in the TCC bonding line, in stamping by the Vibe and Wash, and in the maintenance compressor room. There is a portable station upstairs by the battery charger. This station should only be activated in case of an emergency. Fire extinguishers are located throughout the facility for your protection. Most of the fire extinguishers are ABC dry chemical extinguishers, which can be used to put out several different types of fires. The dry chemical actually smothers the fire. In some instances, hail-on fire extinguishers are provided. These can be used to protect electronic equipment from being harmed. You are not required to use a fire extinguisher. However, should you have to use one, remember the acronym PASS. Pull the pin at the top of the extinguisher, aim the nozzle at the base of the fire, squeeze the trigger handle, and sweep the nozzle from side to side. Fire extinguishers should only be used for small fires, like the size of a small trash can. If the fire cannot be controlled with the fire extinguisher, call 911 and let the professionals handle it. In the event you observe someone in distress, call 911. If using one of our landlines, you must dial 9 first. On a cell phone, simply dial 911. Provide the dispatcher with details of the emergency. After you've made the call, notify your supervisor so that EMTs can be directed to the proper area. Let's test your knowledge. Question number 1. When using a fire extinguisher, PASS means A. Pull the pin, aim at the base of the fire, spit on the fire, stomp it out. Or B. Pull the pin, aim at the base of the fire, squeeze the handle, stomp on the fire. Or C. Pull the pin, aim at the base of the fire, squeeze the handle, sweep the nozzle from side to side. The correct answer is C. Pull the pin, aim at the base of the fire, squeeze the handle, and sweep from side to side. Let's talk about bloodborne pathogens. Bloodborne pathogens are disease-causing organisms, usually viruses and bacteria, carried in the human blood and certain other bodily fluids. HIV and hepatitis B are the most serious bloodborne pathogens. Anytime there is contact with infected blood or bodily fluids, there is a risk of transmission. Our SOP 97 is our bloodborne pathogen exposure control plan. We observe the universal precaution. a prevention strategy that treats all material containing blood or blood containing bodily fluids as though it is contaminated. If you encounter any blood or bodily fluids, treat it as though it is infected. Bloodborne pathogens can enter the body through open sores, cuts and lacerations, or abrasions. They can also enter the body through the mucous membrane, such as the mouth, nose, or ears. If you have not been trained as a first responder, do not attempt to clean up any blood or blood-containing bodily fluids. If you have come in contact with such materials, immediately wash the contaminated area with soap and water and notify a first responder. You may barricade an area to prevent others from entering it. If a first responder needs assistance, they will advise you on the PPE requirements. Notify HSE immediately if you have been contaminated by someone else's blood or bodily fluids. Let's test your knowledge. Question number 2. With bloodborne pathogens, the universal precaution means A. Everything in the universe contains bloodborne pathogens, or B. All bodily fluids and blood should be treated as though it contains bloodborne pathogens. The correct answer is B. All bodily fluids and blood should be treated as though it contains bloodborne pathogens. You have the right to access any relevant exposure or medical records. These records are available upon request by contacting the HSE site officer. For your safety, personal protective equipment is required in the manufacturing areas of the facility. You must wear safety glasses, safety-toed shoes, and hearing protection. Additional PPE may be required depending on the job and will be provided to you. In some areas, dust masks are available but are not required. If you choose to wear a dust mask, you will be asked to sign a voluntary respirator use form. To protect your hands from sharp edges, wear gloves. If an item is heavy, do not lift it alone. Seek help from another employee. In some areas, there are hoists to do the heavy lifting. Additional training to operate these hoists will be provided to you if your supervisor determines such training is needed. Our facility requires the use of hearing protection, so let's now review the hearing conservation program. Excessive noise can damage our ears. Once the nerves of the inner ear are damaged from exposure to excessive noise, the damage is permanent. Excessive loud noise can occur at work, at home, or at play. Power tools, recreational equipment, musical bands, or headphones can all generate excessive noise. The damage from exposure to noise occurs in the inner ear, or the cochlea. There are tiny hair cells in this part of the ear that are flattened out when exposed to noise. If the exposure is short, the hair cells can raise back up. If the exposure is long or extremely loud, the hair cells don't recover and hearing ability is reduced. When all the hairs are damaged, complete deafness occurs. Our speech includes higher pitches such as the letter S. People who have some hearing loss often say, "I can hear you talking, but I can't understand you." The difficulty in hearing speech is usually worse in a crowded room when many people are talking. The greater the noise level, the quicker the hearing loss will occur. Short exposures to very loud noise can cause a temporary hearing loss. Normal hearing will return if no other exposure occurs. But years of exposure to very loud noise, even if the time of exposure is short each day, will gradually cause hearing loss. Most people can tolerate exposure to noise levels under 85 decibels for years without a noticeable hearing loss. Whether at home or at work, there is a lot of equipment that is loud and harmful to our ears. Use hearing protection at home when you are operating loud equipment. There are 3 basic types of hearing protection. We provide at least 2 options for you to choose from. We offer foam earplugs and flanged earplugs. The foam earplugs are disposable and are usually discarded after a day's use or more often in dirty environments. Some plugs are connected by a cord to prevent dropping or losing them. The flanged earplugs are reusable and should not be discarded until they are worn out. Reusable plugs should be cleaned periodically with warm soap and water. Earplugs should not be handled with dirty hands. If using foam earplugs, it is important to insert them properly. The technique for inserting earplugs is to pull the ear up and back, roll the earplug into a small cylinder, push it into the ear canal, and hold it there for a few seconds until it expands and fills the ear canal. This will provide the tightest fit and the greatest protection. Make sure you compress the earplugs, otherwise it will not function properly. The left picture shows plugs only partially inserted into the ear canal, a common mistake. If you have properly inserted the earplugs, it will look like the picture on the right. Earmuffs are available for employees prone to ear infections. If you need this type of hearing protection, please advise your supervisor. The noise reduction rating is listed on the packaging of the earplugs. This is the expected reduction in decibels if the earplugs are worn properly. For your safety, iPods, earbuds, and headsets are prohibited from the facility. These do not actually protect your hearing, and in many cases they can make it worse. Let's test your knowledge. Question number 3. To prevent hearing loss, I can A. Use earbuds, B. Stuff cotton in my ears, or C. Wear earplugs provided by Oerlikon. The correct answer is C. Wear the earplugs provided by Oerlikon. Please observe the signs we have posted throughout the facility. These signs are in place to ensure your safety. We have a written program and procedures to control hazardous energy during the servicing and maintenance of equipment. Employees have received classroom training and have been observed properly locking out equipment are authorized employees. Until you have received such training, you are an affected employee. Authorized employees that need to control hazardous energy will hang locks and tags identifying them on the equipment they are working on. These locks and tags may not be tampered with, as it could impact the safety of the employee conducting the work. When walking in the facility, use pedestrian aisles marked with the green lines. Be aware of any forklift operation in the area. Do not cross in front of moving forklifts, and do not use a cell phone when walking in the plant, as it distracts you and creates a safety issue. You may not operate forklifts unless we have trained you and are certified as an operator. When in the plant, you must maintain a 3-foot distance from any powered industrial truck that is in motion. If the forklift operator is lifting a load higher than 5 feet, you must maintain a 10-foot minimum distance from the forklift. Use the designated aisleways and make eye contact with forklift operators before crossing any aisle. Remember, just because you can see them does not mean they can see you. Working at heights is a potential life-threatening activity done routinely while on the job. Our SOP 91 Work at Height policy provides rules and guidelines to ensure work is done safely while at heights. The best way to stay safe is to keep both feet on the ground. When possible, avoid having to work at heights in the first place. However, if work can't be done from the ground, a work at height permit must be issued for jobs over 6.5 feet. This includes activities such as using scaffolding, aerial lifts, ladders over 6.5 feet, or working around unprotected edges such as a roof. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, there are more than 42,000 injuries in the United States every year caused by being struck by a falling object. That's almost 116 injuries every day and about 1 every 10 minutes. And this only accounts for the ones that have gone reported. Many go unreported. So it's important to remember to be careful while underneath people working at heights. At all costs, avoid this. If you see a barrier, be sure to stay away and not cross that barrier. The following rules should be considered when planning work with ladders. Work should never exceed 30 minutes in one position. It is important to use the right ladder for the job. Look at the ladder type. such as a step ladder or an extension ladder. Pick the ladder that will give you enough height to get the job done. Look at the weight capacity and be sure that it can hold your weight along with any tools needed. It's critical to also look at the material of the ladder. For example, a chemical resistant ladder is needed if you're going to work around chemicals that can corrode the ladder, or use a non-conducting ladder if used around electricity. It's important to inspect all ladders before each use. Look for any defects such as corrosion, dents, or bends, loose or missing fittings, or any structural defects. If any damage is found, the ladder must be taken out of service and destroyed. Always maintain 3 points of contact with the ladder. This means either 2 hands and 1 foot, or 1 hand and 2 feet. Therefore, carrying objects prevents you from doing this and is strictly forbidden. The feet of the ladder should be supported on a firm, level surface. The ladder should not rest on loose material or rest on any other object just to gain extra height. Extension ladders must project at least 3 feet from any landing, and when finished with the ladder, they must be stored in a secure position that will prevent them from falling. Pre-use ladder inspections are hung up by all ladders and can be used as a guideline to conduct ladder inspections. Let's test your knowledge. Question number 4. When must a work at height permit be obtained? A. When using a ladder over 6.5 feet. B. When working around a roof edge that is unprotected. C. When working on an aerial lift. Or D. All of the above. And the correct answer is D. All of the above. We have numerous overhead cranes and hoists in the plant. You may not use a crane or hoist unless you've been trained. It's important to stay clear and never walk under a suspended load. Lifting materials such as slings must be inspected before each use. Look for signs of damage, such as slings may not be frayed into the warning yarn, hooks should not be bent or stretched and must have a weight capacity. Safety latches should also be in good condition. This facility has a hazard communication program in place to ensure your safety while working with hazardous materials. Chemical manufacturers are required to classify the hazards of the materials they produce, to label it, and to prepare a safety data sheet. It is our responsibility to obtain the safety data sheet and make them available to you. The majority of chemical hazards in the workplace are solvents, acids, and caustics, metals, dust, and pesticides. These chemical hazards can be in the form of dusts, fumes, mists, aerosols, fibers, vapors, and gases. In addition to chemical hazards, there may be biological hazards such as bacteria, viruses, fungi, and molds. These chemical and biological hazards can enter our body in 4 basic ways: through inhalation, or breathing it into our lungs, by ingestion, through our mouths, skin absorption, or by injection, through cuts, punctures, lacerations, or even by using compressed air to blow off your body. A chemical is hazardous when it has the potential to do physical harm or make you ill. Physical hazards occur if a chemical is likely to burn or support combustion, if it may explode or release high pressures that could inflict bodily harm, or if it can spontaneously react. Health hazards are those chemicals that have been shown to cause acute or chronic health effects. Acute health effects are those which occur immediately or very soon after exposure. These may be materials that are irritants, corrosives, sensitizers, or toxins. Chronic health effects are those that take a longer time to develop. These chemicals are chemicals like asbestos, benzene, lead, and mercury, none of which we have in our facility. Whether or not a chemical will cause harm is based on many different factors, including the toxicity of the chemical and how much of it we are exposed to. It is always prudent to limit exposures to chemicals to the greatest extent possible. It's also important to use the required PPE to ensure your safety. Container labels are your first level of hazard communication. The labels are there to provide an immediate warning of the hazards as determined by the manufacturer. All containers must be labeled with the identity of the contents. If the material is transferred into another container, that container must be labeled. Your supervisor can obtain labels for you as needed. Let's test your knowledge. Question number 5. Exposure to chemical hazards can occur through which routes? Select all that apply. A. Inhalation. B. Ingestion. C. Skin absorption. D. Injection. Or E. By looking at the chemical. The correct answer or answers are A, B, C, and D. The U.S. adopted the United Nations Globally Harmonized System of Chemical Classifications, GHS for short. Under GHS, chemical manufacturers must now label their containers with a new format. There must be a product identifier, a signal word of danger or warning, if applicable, a hazard statement and precautionary statement as deemed necessary by the manufacturer, and the supplier identification and any pictograms that are needed. Under GHS, there are new pictograms that must be used to represent health hazards and physical hazards. The US EPA added a pictogram for environmental hazards. These two pictograms are specific to acute toxicity or short-term exposures. The skull and crossbones is for any substance that is classified as having an acute toxicity in health hazards category 1 through 3. The acute toxicity health class category 4, the least hazardous, is represented by the exclamation mark. If a substance is properly labeled, these two pictograms will never appear on the same label. It will be one or the other, with the skull and crossbones representing the more severe hazard. Most employees should be familiar with the pictogram for corrosion on the left. The pictogram on the right is called the health hazard pictogram and is represented by a silhouette of a person with a starburst across the chest. This is used to indicate that the substance is a chronic and/or target organ hazard. The next two slides represent physical hazards such as explosives and flammable materials. Note that the corrosive pictogram used to designate corrosion to metal is the same pictogram used for skin corrosion, serious eye damage, and eye irritation under the health hazard classification. Not all health hazards represented by this pictogram are corrosive to metal, so it is important to look for additional information on the label and in the SDS. Oxidizers are chemicals that can emit oxygen and increase the risk of fire. In the past, there have been several signal words that may have been used to indicate a hazard like caution, warning, or danger. The GHS permits the use of only two signal words, danger and warning. Only one of these signal words is permitted to appear on the label based on the classification of the chemical. If determined to be needed by the manufacturer, the label will include a hazard statement based on the hazard class and category that describes the nature of the hazard. The manufacturer might also include a precautionary statement. This statement describes recommended measures that should be taken to minimize or prevent adverse effects resulting from exposure to hazardous chemicals or improper storage or handling. For example, a precautionary statement might state, "Wear respirator protection." However, employees may not be required to wear a respirator based on the employer's evaluation of the factors such as how the chemical is used, how often, the concentration, or air monitoring that might have been done. GHS labels will provide you with standardized information, such as pictograms, product identifiers, signal words, hazard statements, and precautionary statements. Supplemental information and supplier identification may also be included. Under the GHS changes to the Hazard Communication Standard, MSDSs are now called Safety Data Sheets, or SDSs. SDSs will have a consistent 16-section format. We are required to maintain copies of all SDSs for the chemicals we use and to make them available to you. You can access electronic copies of the SDSs on the computer kiosks in the second floor break room. Hard copies are located in binders in the HSE office. Materials used by contractors are also kept on file and can be located in the electronic file and in the HSE office. The new 16-section format contains a lot of valuable information to the chemical user, including the composition, first aid, and suggested PPE. If you have any questions about the materials we use, you have many resources available to you. Review the safety data sheets, read the container labels, ask your supervisor or the HSE site officer. Ensure your safety around hazardous materials and equipment by wearing the PPE that is required in your department. You must always wear safety glasses, earplugs, and safety toe shoes in the manufacturing areas. If you are unsure about what PPE to wear, ask your supervisor. Let's test your knowledge. Question number 6. If I need more information about a chemical I work with, I can A. Ask my supervisor, B. Read the container label, C. Review the safety data sheet, or D. Ask the HSE site officer. Select all that apply. The correct answers are A, B, C, and D. Labels are your first level of hazard communication. All containers must have labels identifying the content and should be kept closed when not in use. Report all chemical spills to your supervisor and complete an incident report form. Spill kits are also available if needed. We use a number of flammable and combustible materials in this facility. It is important that these materials are stored and handled properly. Flash point means a minimum temperature at which liquid gives off vapor to form an ignitable mixture with the air near the surface of the liquid. Flammable liquids themselves will not burn, but as the liquid evaporates, it gives off vapors that mix with the air to form dangerous gases that can be set off by a small spark. Gasoline, for example, evaporates at temperatures as low as 45 degrees Fahrenheit below zero. As the temperature rises, the rate of evaporation increases and more vapors are given off. Flammable vapors are usually heavier than air, so they collect at the lowest areas they can reach. Without good ventilation to dissipate them, a small spark could set off a big disaster. Combustible liquids have a flash point at or above 100 degrees Fahrenheit. The different lube oils that we use are combustible. The difference between a flammable liquid and a combustible liquid is A. The color, B. The smell, or C. The flash point. The correct answer is C. The flash point. Corrosive liquids are used in various parts washers in the facility. A corrosive liquid can be an acid with a low pH or a caustic with a high pH. When using these materials, proper PPE must be worn: rubber gloves, safety glasses, and face shields. If you are going to be working in a department with these materials, you will be trained on how to properly handle the materials. A number of compressed gases are at this facility, primarily for welding and to operate our forklifts. Unless you have been trained as a welder or have been certified by us to operate a forklift, you may not handle compressed gases. Compressed air is used in many areas throughout the facility. Do not use compressed air to blow off your body. Compressed air can cause flying fragments of debris to penetrate your eyes or skin. Compressed air itself might also penetrate the skin or even damage your eyes or ears. Compressed air wands used for sweeping have pressure relief valves that are limited to 30 pounds of pressure. When using compressed air for sweeping or for operating air tools, wear eye and skin protection. Store air hoses properly. Do not allow them to lie on the ground where they can be stepped on, run over by carts or forklifts, and damaged. Inspect your air hoses on a regular basis for cracks or splits. Machine guarding on our equipment may not be bypassed. We use a number of safeguarding methods, including fixed barrier guards, light curtains, interlocked movable guards. These guards are intended to prevent access to the point of operation. Observe all safeguarding and safety procedures as instructed by your department trainer. If you observe defective machine guarding, immediately bring it to the attention of your supervisor. Our equipment is guarded in many different ways to ensure your safety, such as light curtains, fixed barrier guards, and safety interlocks. Let's test your knowledge. Question number 8. What personal protective equipment or PPE must I wear on my first day? Check all that apply. A. Earplugs. B. Safety glasses. C. Safety toe shoes. The correct answers are A, B, and C. Job hazard analyses have been conducted on all manufacturing positions. The JHA identifies hazards associated with the job and the measures taken to protect persons conducting the work. Depending on your position, you will receive additional training in your department on JHAs and various work instructions designed to keep you safe. Never take shortcuts on your safety. Follow the procedures that have been put in place and observe all safety precautions. This is what a JHA looks like. Your department will train you by having you review the work instructions and the JHAs. If you have any questions about the safe way to perform your tasks, make sure you ask your supervisor or team lead. If you will be conducting a non-routine task, you should perform a last-minute risk assessment. With the last-minute risk assessment, you identify the potential risks such as the risks of electrocution, falling objects, being caught in or hit by moving parts, falling, being burned, exposure to harmful dusts or chemicals, exposure to noise, fire or explosion, or tripping. A last-minute risk assessment using a 2x2 matrix looks at the impact of the harm that could occur and the likelihood that it could occur. Always plan for the unexpected and manage the risk. Before you undertake a task, consider if you could be harmed and how likely it is that you could be harmed if the task is not better controlled. If the risk is not in the green area, discuss with your supervisor for additional controls that might be needed. Utility knives and cutters are the cause of numerous injuries for a number of reasons, such as not holding the knife correctly, trying to catch a falling knife, applying too much pressure, using a dull blade, tripping or bumping into someone with the blade exposed, and pulling the blade towards your body. It is important that you choose the right knife for the job and only use knives with retractable blades, except for quality when performing a knife check. Studies have shown that the human brain has not evolved adequately to focus on multiple tasks at a time. When we try and multitask, we are not able to give equal attention to the other tasks. This phenomenon is referred to as inattentive blindness. When we use our phones and drive, walk, or work, we are more prone to making mistakes that could lead to significant injuries or even death. For this reason, we follow the safe use of mobile phone guideline that details some do's and don'ts of using mobile phones. When driving, the best practice is to pull over and park before engaging in mobile phone activities. If you have a hands-free device, accepting phone calls is okay. However, try and keep the call to a minimum and avoid complicated or emotional discussions. Only use your phone in safe locations that are away from moving people, equipment, and vehicles. You are expected to refrain from using your phone while going up and down the stairs, or even walking in general. On the production floor, mobile phone use is prohibited while driving a powered industrial truck. You may also not use your cell phone while in manufacturing areas. If you have an emergency call, leave the production floor and take the call in a safe location such as a break room or outside the facility. We recycle just about everything, including aerosol cans and batteries. Containers are located outside the maintenance shop by the large walk-in freezer. Instructions are posted in the area. We also recycle cardboard, plastic bottles, cans, and paper. Mixed recycling containers are located throughout the departments. Cardboard boxes should be broken down and flattened. Used oil and oily wastewater are also recycled. Totes and drums for these materials are located in both the bonding and stamping areas. Scrap metal is also recycled. Your department will instruct you on what is recycled and where it should be placed. Help us make a difference and conserve resources by recycling. Next time you're outside the facility, observe how clean it is. We do not store items outside. This ensures that any rainwater does not become contaminated. Inside the building, we store liquid materials on containment pallets to prevent releases to the environment. If something is spilled in the plant, clean it up immediately. Absorbent material is located outside the maintenance shop. We covered a lot of different SOPs in this training. If you need additional information or would like to review it, you can find all our documents on the intranet site, Dayton S Drive in the Document Control folder, Forms SC, File SC-1. Additional training may be required based on your job functions. Your supervisor will determine what additional training you require and will review with you the emergency exit plan for your area. If you have any safety concerns, discuss them with your supervisor, your department safety committee member, or someone from the HSE office. Please complete the HSE orientation checklist and return it to your trainer. Thank you for being part of Earlicon and stay safe.